The clock on my nightstand glowed 1:03 a.m. when my phone buzzed across the wooden table. I almost ignored it. Nobody who respected boundaries texted at that hour unless something terrible had happened. Half asleep, I glanced at the screen and froze. The sender wasn't my wife, Emily. It wasn't my boss either. It was my boss's wife, Rachel. The preview read, "Please don't ignore this. You deserve to know the truth." I frowned, convinced it had been sent by mistake. My finger hovered over notification before I locked the screen again. Whatever drama existed in their marriage wasn't my business. I rolled over, determined to sleep, never imagining that one unread message was about to destroy everything I believed about my own life. Morning arrived with gray clouds hanging outside the kitchen window. Emily smiled as she poured coffee, humming softly as though nothing in the world could disturb her peace. She kissed my cheek and asked whether I had another late meeting with my boss that evening. Something about her unusually cheerful mood felt rehearsed, but I pushed the thought away. At work, my phone vibrated again. Rachel had sent another message. This time there were 4 words. "Open the photos, please." My stomach tightened. Curiosity finally defeated hesitation. I opened the chat, expecting screenshots of office gossip or proof of my boss cheating on her. Instead, I found 3 photographs, and every single one included my wife. My hands instantly went cold. The first picture showed Emily entering an upscale hotel lobby. The second captured her laughing beside my boss, Daniel, as though they had known each other forever. The third photo hit harder than a punch. Daniel gently rested his hand on the small of Emily's back while leading her toward the elevator. It wasn't enough to prove an affair, but it certainly wasn't innocent. Rachel immediately called after seeing I had viewed the images. Her exhausted voice barely rose above a whisper. "I've been following Daniel for weeks," she said. "Yesterday, I discovered your wife has been meeting him regularly." My heartbeat echoed in my ears. Part of me wanted to accuse Rachel of trying to destroy 2 marriages. Another part feared she was telling the truth. I didn't confront Emily that evening. Instead, I quietly watched her. She came home carrying shopping bags she claimed were from a bookstore across town. She laughed during dinner, asked about my day, and even suggested we plan a weekend getaway together. Every smile now carried a question mark. Every casual glance felt like part of a performance. After she went upstairs, I searched the receipts sticking out of the shopping bag. There wasn't a single bookstore receipt inside. Instead, hidden beneath folded tissue paper, I found a parking receipt from the exact luxury hotel shown in Rachel's photographs. My chest tightened. Suddenly, the photos weren't random anymore. They were beginning to connect into a story I desperately didn't want to believe. Rachel and I agreed to meet the following afternoon at a quiet cafe several miles away from the office. She looked exhausted, her eyes surrounded by sleepless shadows. Without saying much, she slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed photographs, hotel invoices, and copies of restaurant reservations under Daniel's name. Emily appeared repeatedly beside him. Different clothes, different days, different locations. Rachel explained she had hired a private investigator after noticing unexplained business trips. She had expected to uncover one affair. Instead, she uncovered 2 lives running parallel behind our backs. Still, something puzzled her. "Your wife always looked nervous," Rachel admitted, almost like she wanted to leave but couldn't. That single sentence planted a seed of doubt I couldn't ignore. That evening I decided to investigate instead of explode. Emily believed I was working late, but I parked across the street from the hotel shown in the photographs. Nearly 40 minutes passed before a familiar silver sedan pulled into the parking garage. Emily stepped out wearing the same blue coat she had claimed she donated weeks earlier. Minutes later, Daniel arrived separately. My pulse raced as they entered the building without touching, without smiling, carefully avoiding attention. I followed from a distance and watched them disappear into a private conference room instead of a hotel suite. Confusion replaced anger. Why would 2 people hiding an affair meet inside a conference room? Something about the entire situation suddenly felt far more complicated than simple betrayal. Unable to stay hidden any longer, I quietly approached the hallway outside the conference room. The door wasn't fully closed. Through the narrow opening, I heard raised voices. Daniel sounded furious. "You promised you'd keep him completely unaware," he snapped. Emily answered with trembling determination. "I won't lie to my husband forever. This has gone too far." My heart nearly stopped. Before I could process those words, another voice joined the argument, a voice I recognized immediately. It belonged to the company's chief financial officer. "If either of you talks," he warned coldly, "everything collapses, and none of us walks away clean." At that exact moment, someone inside slowly turned toward the half-open door, and I realized I had just been seen. The conference room door swung open before I had a chance to step away. Daniel stared directly at me, his expression shifting from shock to frustration in a single heartbeat. Emily turned around, and the color instantly drained from her face. "Ryan," she whispered, taking one hesitant step toward me. I expected excuses, lies, or another carefully rehearsed story. Instead, nobody spoke for several long seconds. The silence felt heavier than any argument could have. Finally, the CFO folded his arms and ordered everyone to sit down. "Since he's here," he said coldly, "there's no point pretending anymore." I realized I hadn't walked into a secret affair. I had stumbled into something much darker. The CFO placed several confidential files across the conference table. Inside were fake contracts, altered financial statements, and records of millions of dollars quietly disappearing from company accounts over several years. Daniel confessed he had been helping hide the fraud after making one terrible financial decision that spiraled completely out of control. Emily hadn't been meeting him because they were lovers. Months earlier, she had accidentally discovered suspicious documents while organizing company charity events. Daniel panicked and begged her to stay silent. When she refused, he began threatening to destroy my career by blaming me for the missing money. Every meeting Rachel photographed had been another attempt to pressure Emily into signing false statements that would frame me if the investigation ever began. I felt anger boiling inside me, not toward Emily anymore, but toward the people who had manipulated both of us. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, struggling to understand. Tears filled Emily's eyes as she admitted the truth. Daniel had shown her copies of fake emails and forged approvals carrying my digital signature. He claimed that if she spoke to anyone, especially me, the company would accuse me of embezzlement before I even understood what was happening. She believed staying quiet was the only way to buy enough time to find evidence proving my innocence. Every lie she'd told had been fueled by fear, not betrayal. Hearing that shattered me almost as much as the photographs had. Before anyone else could speak, Rachel quietly reached into her purse and placed a small voice recorder on the table. She pressed the play button. The room filled with Daniel's voice from earlier meetings, openly discussing forged documents, hidden bank accounts, and plans to make me the perfect scapegoat if authorities ever investigated the missing money. The CFO's face turned pale as he realized every threatening conversation had been secretly recorded. Rachel looked directly at me and said, "I didn't send those photos to destroy your marriage. I sent them because I knew you were the only person who could help stop this before they ruined both our lives." Suddenly, everything made sense. The following morning, Rachel, Emily, and I walked together into the offices of federal investigators, carrying every document, recording, and financial record we had collected. The investigation moved faster than any of us expected. Within days, search warrants were executed, company servers were seized, and several executives, including Daniel and the CFO, were placed under arrest. News channels reported one of the largest corporate fraud investigations the city had ever seen. Reporters focused on the financial scandal, never realizing that everything had started with a single ignored text message sent at 1 a.m. Had I deleted Rachel's message that night, I would likely have become the perfect suspect, while the real criminals disappeared forever. Even after the arrests, repairing my marriage wasn't easy. Trust doesn't magically return simply because someone had good intentions. Emily admitted she should have trusted me instead of trying to protect me alone. I admitted that I had silently judged the moment I saw those photographs without asking a single question. We spent months rebuilding what fear and secrecy had nearly destroyed. Some conversations ended in tears. Others ended in silence. But little by little, honesty replaced suspicion. Looking back, I realized that relationships rarely collapse because of one lie. They collapse when people stop believing they can face the truth together. Today, Whenever my phone vibrates late at night, I never dismiss it without looking. One unexpected message from my boss's wife exposed a conspiracy, saved my reputation, and forced me to confront how quickly appearances can deceive us. The photographs that once convinced me my wife had betrayed me turned out to be evidence of something far more dangerous than an affair. I learned that trust should never be blind, but neither should suspicion. Sometimes the story everyone believes is the easiest one to accept, while the real truth hides behind fear, silence, and impossible choices. And all because of a text I almost ignored at 1 a.m.